Hello there, and welcome to our third episode of Capital Connections. I'm Will DuBos, the LRA Director of Government and Public Affairs, and your host today. I have joining with me is LRA President and CEO Stan Harris to talk to us about a sometimes scary topic, testifying. There may be a time where you're called up to bat. Stan, you've testified countless times as a restaurateur and as the chief lobbyist for the LRA. Take us through that process.
Certainly, Will. I think all of us have gone through some panic in our lives when we have to make a presentation, or we have to go talk to our banker, or we have to stand in front of a group. And it is not a normal human behavior. Our board at the LRA is kind enough to give us the time to prepare for our board meetings. And the thing that I find most helpful is when they're over, they go, I really felt like that meeting went really, really well. And that makes me realize that the preparation that we put into it is what pays that dividend. For us, when you're going to the Capitol, I remind people a couple of things. Be respectful. Before you speak, if you're a little bit flighty, take a deep breath. But we're going to help our member prepare for something. We're going to invite you first. We're going to guide you through the process. We'll tell you what to expect. We'll be sitting either beside you or right behind you, and we'll help you put the information together, and it will all be fact-based. And then you can share your opinion. What we give you will be fact-based, and then you can weave your own words into it when you're sitting at the table. Typically, when you come in, there's going to be people on there on the proponent side, and they're typically going to speak first. And they're going to have to put in a card that says, it's typically a green color card that says they're a proponent for the bill. It identifies the bill and what committee we're in, their name and their contact information. Fortunately for Will and I, we use so many of them, we have a stamp to put our personal information on there.
That's helpful.
Saves a lot of time. But as that volunteer, that LRA member comes in to speak, let's say it's an issue we're opposing. We'll put in a red card, and we'll put the same information on there, and the opponents typically are going to speak after. And so there may be a time that you've come in and you've sat for an hour or two during testimony, and we feel like it's time to call the question, and a member from the dais calls the question for a vote, and you don't get to testify. That's okay. Your presence was very important for helping deliver that outcome. I go back a few years ago, we had an issue with a bakery issue. And our member came up and wanted to testify. And I said, we've got this bill defeated. We don't really want any testimony. But if you really go testify, you're opening the door to losing this. And pretty soon the quorum returned. And people said, well, that's not so bad. Well, would you consider adding this and do that again? And all of a sudden we lost the issue. And the issue became law. And it really is something that was detrimental to this baker's business. But unfortunately, he didn't understand the process, and we do a pretty good job of trying to explain that to him, but we'll help all steps of the way. When it comes time to, as we call it, calling the question, that's asking for the vote, or they want to make an amendment, they're going to do the voting. We're not going to have an opinion on that. For us, we don't get to move it favorably or unfavorably. We're the people out there that are saying, thank you for allowing me to share my views on this. And just remember this, that those people that are in that room, some of them are paid proponents or paid opponents like we are as your advocates from the LRA. And at the same time, they're just citizens like you. So they're just there trying to share their story as well and how it would impact their life. So you just always have to remember, try to do it on balance, try to be respectful of the time, and stay as concise as possible.
And I think another important thing to remember, if you're nervous or if you're not a great public speaker, at least you don't think you are, just remember that these people that you're testifying before, at the end of the session, they go home to their district and they carry on their lives. They're citizens as well. They're average Joes. They have normal jobs. And so it gets on television today, it's, you think it's such a big deal. And it is a big deal. It's important. But these are people too. You can just have a conversation with them.
Yeah, our goal really, if I could tell you in a succinct way, tell them who you are, tell them where you operate, tell them how many people you employ. And then from there, turn around and tell them how this particular legislation would impact your business. positively or negatively. Don't talk about the whole industry. Talk about your business. Be as specific and concise as possible. If someone that's testified before you on the same thing and has already stated the case, don't repeat it, because they'll have already heard it. And remember, we're kind of time constrained at times. Sometimes they'll put the rules in that only allow a certain amount of time for you to respond. But talk about the pain points. Talk about the costs to your business if you eliminated something, or they banned something, or they mandated something on you. The one thing that we truly as an association oppose are unfunded mandates from government that require you to pick up additional costs in operating your restaurant. You can talk about, does it impact your employment? Does it impact your ability to attract and retain employees? And how many people you keep on your payroll is always an important factor, because it tells people how big your business is. You can tell them how many days of the week you operate, how many hours of the day. You don't have to get into the details of your sales volume or anything else, but a great point is always, I employ 30 people. 25 of those are full-time, 5 of those are part-time. Letting people really understand and get a better picture of your business without actually being and standing inside your business.
Those are great points, Dan. We appreciate your insight. We'll be right back to the Capital Connections podcast after this message.
Louisiana hotels know a thing or two about hospitality, from the thread count of the sheets, to the little scented soaps in the bath, to the praline on the pillow. For the Louisiana Restaurant Association's SIF, the same is true when it comes to workers' comp. Our team knows what Louisiana hotels need when it comes to your team's safety and your success. Everybody who's anybody goes with LRA Workers' Comp. Ask around. In this business, word of mouth is everything.
Okay, Stan, bringing it back to the importance of jobs. I mean, that's something that legislators on both sides of the aisle can agree on, preserving jobs, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. So pre-COVID, restaurants and food service were the largest employer in the state. About 12% of the workforce worked in our industry. That's a significant number of people. We take everyone. We take the 16-year-old looking for their first job. We take someone who might have fallen on harder times and is looking to find a pathway to a rewarding career and a successful career. We have programs on reentry that take people that have been previously incarcerated and provide the skills to them. We have a 2-year high school program in 50-plus high schools across the state called ProStart that's part of the Jump Start curriculum that allows kids to learn culinary and management skills and move directly into the workforce from high school without any further higher ed. We have programs called Restaurant Ready. We have other Serve Success programs that we can train people in the competencies that they need to be successful in the industry. But when it gets down to it, we want to be that industry of opportunity. If you're sitting in your entry-level job 3 or 4 years after you've joined this industry, then typically something's wrong. Either you don't have the availability of time, you don't have the aptitude, or you don't have the skill set. And that employer wants to train you, because trust me, they don't want to hire you and lose you. They need people, because that's how they grow their business. And without employees, without the people to stir the pot, they're an essential element to the success of that business.
Well, thank you, Stan. And certainly there are several important issues coming up this session. And I know you and I both look forward to working with our members if and when the time comes to testify.
Yeah, it's always good to get them to the Capitol. We like to get them to the LRA house and maybe run them over to ride with us so that they can get a little calmer in how they have to present. It's a little overwhelming sometimes. We take it for granted when we walk into the Capitol. We're registered as lobbyists, so we don't have to go through the metal detectors. We typically know who the sergeant at arms are on the floor or in a committee room. We know the process. For us, we'll go grab a green card, we'll go grab an agenda, we'll see if anything's been struck. But as you well know, Will, we can have a long agenda of 20 bills, and the first thing the chairman does is start striking bills that aren't going to be heard that day. And the people that are there, if they haven't talked to the author to know that it's not going to be heard that day, they might have driven in from across the state to be there. So for me, that's the one thing that we always want to make sure of up until the last minute. Will that bill be heard? Are they going to be debating it today? Sometimes when there's issues like wages, they might do a day of just wages. They might just do a day of equal pay. They might just do a day of leave issues. They might do a commerce dealing with just bills that reflect approvals that would generate new revenue options in Louisiana. The subject matter bills, and one of the things that's a challenge for the LRA is we look at our colleagues from the alcohol and spirits beverage alcohol business. They're typically concerned with taxes, and they're concerned with regulations in judiciary or judiciary B in the Senate, and the taxes go from Ways and Means, and then they're reviewed by Revenue and Fisc in the Senate side. Well, for us, we may have an issue before Natural Resources that's a fisheries issue. We may have an issue with LDH that's being dealt with in the Health and Welfare Committee. We may have an issue that affects our insurance program for workers' comp in the Insurance Committee. We may have an issue that's dealing with the labor side of that, how we deal with an injured worker that's in the Labor Committee. These things may all be going on at the same time on similar days. So rather than running around with a chicken with our head cut off, we actually have to use members of our team to cover more of it. We're able to use some technology. We're able to watch other committee hearings on your phone. Sometimes we watch them on an iPad or a Surface tablet, and we keep up with what's going on. But we have to use technology because there's no way that one of us can be in 3 or 4 places at a time, especially if we've got people for testifying. The fortunate thing for us is there's generally only 3 or 4 days a year that we ask people to come up and testify. We use the relationships that we've established through the fundraising that our members do in contributing to the Louisiana's Hospitality PAC. We're a big PAC, so that means that we can give a little bit more money than a smaller PAC. Typically, we're limited to $5,000 in an election cycle to a legislator, a senator, or representative. It's $10,000 for a statewide elected official or a major office. So when you do that dues check off and make that contribution to the PAC, or you attend one of our philanthropic events, like we just had the Taste of Mardi Gras up in Alexandria, a lot of those funds, besides supporting our philanthropic needs with our educational foundation, they go to support our political action committee, and we help to re-elect incumbents and find candidates that want to serve and that align with the industry. We're one of the few industries that contributes a lobby that contributes to both Democrats and Republicans, because I really feel like it's our job to find pro-industry, pro-business bills that we can take to someone who might not be considered a pro-business legislator and educate them as to why this is good for the constituents in their district. And when we do that, we build relationships that are really strong because they build that trust. And as you know, Will, in the years you've been doing this, and I know it in the 12 years I've done it, my word is my bond. I can't lie to anybody about anything. If something changes, I'm going to let them know right away that something's changed in a particular bill, it changed now we have to go through it. But by the same token, when we're lobbying a bill, if I go to a legislator and I present the information to them and they tell me, they hold up their hands, they'll go, I just can't help you on this one. I'm not going to bother them again. Now, what I may do is reach out to one of our members in their district and ask them to call them and say, I need to tell you why this is important to me. And that might be my second bite at the apple, but I'm not going to put 1,000 emails in their inbox. I'm not going to fill up their phone with tons of voicemails. We're just not going to do that because I don't think that's the right way to do it. There's sometimes we work with a coalition on this plastic bag ban legislation. We're working with the Louisiana retailers. We're working with the National Federation of Independent Business. We're working with the Beverage Institute. We're working with the oil and gas marketers, which are the convenience stores. All of those people that are tied into using this particular product. So we build a bigger tent. We have more people talking about it. If we actually have to go lobby the bill on the floor, we are dividing up the legislative makeup into groups of 8, 10 people. You're working a tick sheet on those people that are there. So we really do build these coalitions sometimes. And it may be the next week we're not part of that coalition and we're working against people that were part of that very coalition. So the one thing I've learned about being a lobbyist is that you have to have 2 things to be successful besides your word and being truthful. you have to have thick skin and you have to have a short memory, because the guy that you're opposing today is the person that might be carrying a piece of legislation for you or an amendment for you tomorrow.
Well, when you have, upwards of 800 bills in the session, that you're never going to agree on everything, but like I said, you can find something to agree on. Next up, we'll hear from LRA members who will tell us how empowering testifying in committees can be.
Not just anybody can make the perfect Sazerac. And not just anybody can offer Louisiana's hospitality industry the perfect coverage. For 40 years, everybody who's anybody goes with LRA Workers' Comp.
Yes, obviously the first time I got called to come down to the Capitol, I was extremely nervous, I guess, and not wanting to let anybody down and make sure that we told the right story on behalf of our industry. But, everybody at the LRA office, communicated every detail of, the mission of what we needed to talk about and what we had to get across to our legislature. And, by the time I got there, I was well prepped, and, you always have to kind of a little worry about what that next question might be, but it was fun, and left there feeling like I'd helped to make a difference. Obviously I had, a few opportunities, I guess, as we all navigated the pandemic, at the legislature, and yeah, a lot of, where I got into it, it was the hard work of people like Will DuBos and those that came before him, to have where we sat in as really that live testimonial to somebody that was doing it on a day-to-day basis. But it was, I was ready to go, and we knew what direction things were going to head. So I think it was that hard work prior, and obviously the preparation that the Louisiana Restaurant Association gave me heading into it. By that second and third time I got to go to the Capitol, it was, a lot more comfortable, and actually at that point really felt like I could pinpoint where I could try to make a difference from where I sat as an operator. I'll be honest with you. Since I've been going down to the Capitol, getting some of our representatives here when it comes to, trying to at least explain that there are so many inefficiencies in how state government works. They changed the whole Department of Revenue's website, and now you can't get anything that you need off of it. And I'm waiting for, resale certificates and all these different things that cost us money on a day-to-day basis if you're not on top of it. And I've talked to a couple of representatives just recently about you trying to create a one-stop shop for restaurants where it's not coming back later saying, hey, can I get my sales taxes back that I paid on these products because their system was working slow. So, there's so many things. And I guess, I guess 3 years ago was the first time I went on the advocacy trip to Washington, D.C. and kind of sat back and listened on that trip, and then really saw not only locally in what we can do, but obviously still having a national impact if, hopefully everybody does get their snapshot or the NRA advocacy emails and get to watch the 90-second wrap-up or whatever it's called and fill out the take action forms, because those things make a difference. If you don't take that time to accept the phone call from Wendy, Stan, everybody at or Will now in the office to get in, get your feet wet and get out there and speak on our behalf, then, all of these things have come now to myself, and really feeling like I can be counted on to know our industry and hopefully try to make a difference for all of us. So.
Thank you for listening. That was episode 3 of Capitol Connections. Until next time, this is Will DuBos signing off.